In our last video, we looked at what a trade union was and how it represents a group of employees in the same or similar industry, and it gives individual employees a lot more power if they can negotiate as a group. What we better do now is look at what is their actual role in the workplace relations system. So let's just take a basic example. Let's say, how does first of all, joining a trade union work? Let's take John Smith. He works as a builder, and he works for an employer called Simmons Homes. So you might have heard of them. They're a pretty big employer around Australia. And then what he says is, I'm going to join the union, which in his case would be the Construction, Forestry, Maritime, Mining and Energy Union, which we'll call the CFMEU. And to join, just like any organisation really, to become a member, you pay fees. So let's say he pays $300 per year in membership fees. What we usually call them though is that they call them union dues. But yeah, it's just a membership fee. So now he is a member of the union. So what does he get from that? Well, now the CFMEU can go to Simmons Homes and represent John's interests when negotiating with Simmons Homes. So John Smith has a lot more power this way because the CFMEU is likely to represent a lot of employees that work for Simmons Homes. So now it's a bit more even. And this person here is really important. What the CFMEU will do, they will appoint someone for all the Simmons Homes to sort of go out to the site and look after the interests of their union members. That person is called a shop steward. So the CFMEU appoints a shop steward to go to Simmons Homes and represent all union members who work there. So if John Smith's got a problem, he can talk to his shop steward, and then the shop steward can go back to union head office, and then the union can negotiate with Simmons Homes, and now John Smith has a lot more power, all for his $300 per year, than if he had to negotiate with his employer on his own. So if we could summarize what unions do, we're going to say, what does John get? The role is 4 things. And we'll do these 4 things here. So let's go through them each at a time. And let's start with the first one. The first role of a union is to negotiate and bargain collectively on behalf of all union members with employers to create an award. That's just a type of employment contract. It's a silly name, an award. Like you look at that and you go, what does that mean? A prize? No, it's an employment contract, but we're not going to look at that until the next lesson. So we'll make another video for that one. But the union will negotiate collectively for all union members to create an award for all workers in that industry. So let's take John again in the construction industry. John needs an employment contract just like every employee, which covers how much he gets paid, how many hours a week he has to work, the workplace conditions, and how much annual leave, and a bunch of other things. So what the union will do is, if John negotiated on his own with Simmons Homes, his employer has got no power. So why doesn't the CFMEU get together a group of employees, and rather than negotiating an employment contract just for John, the CFMEU will negotiate a contract for all builders in the industry? And that's the role of a union. And the contract actually just won't be for builders at Simmons Homes. This employment contract, which we'll call an award, will be for builders at all building businesses in the industry. So you could take other employers in the business industry like Metricon or Henley Homes, and now all the employees, all the builders in the building industry can use that award, and it doesn't matter if they're working at Simmons Homes, Metricon or Henley. The second role is to provide support and advice to local union shop stewards and workers. So what we said is, here's John. John's in the union. I don't think I'm being paid the correct amount for the overtime I work. So if he goes to employ his employer, he hasn't got a lot of power on his own. So he joins the union, but even then, he might want to go to his employer and ask about this. It'd be very intimidating to ask about that. So what he can do is go, instead of going to Simmons Homes, is the CFMEU, because that's the union that he is, can have a contact for him to help in resolving the issue. And we said that person is called a shop steward. So the CFMEU will have an appointed shop steward to every building company in the industry. So there'll be a union shop steward for John to go to deal with Simmons Homes. Let's say there's union members working at Metricon. There'll be a union shop steward at Metricon to deal with Metricon on behalf of union members, and there'll be a union shop steward for Henley Homes as well. So that's the second role of a union, to appoint those local union shop stewards to represent workers. Third, they provide assistance, support and information to individual workers. So if I'm in the union, in this case the CFMEU, I can contact that union and get information on what's the correct pay rate for my current situation. What are my rights at work? What are the safety issues that my employer should be taking care of? Things like superannuation and maybe even investment advice. And we don't mean, once upon a time you would have to actually ring up the union and do this, but this is all on the internet now. So you can go to the CFMEU website and it says click on here for members, and there's information sheet about wages and your allowances. What can you get? So for example, to work in construction, you need safety boots, steel cap boots. Who should pay for those? You can't do the job without them, so you want to, should your employer pay for that or should you? So you go to the CFMEU website and you check stuff like that out. This is the Australian unions together as a group, so this is for every union. There's fact sheets here on working on a public holiday, what you need to know. Should you be getting paid more? Do you have to work on a public holiday? What about unsafe work and bullying? What's the minimum wage in your industry and so on? And lastly, we'll say the role of a union is to act as an official spokesperson to the media on behalf of union members. So almost like a media agent. So for example, this is just a couple of recent ones. There's a statement here from the ACTU. So that's the Australian Council of Trade Unions, which we looked at in a previous video. It's kind of like union head office. So the boss of that is Sally McManus, and she's got a statement on Qantas. She says it is not acceptable that one day after the airline industry was provided with $715 million, this is during COVID, Qantas has now told its workforce that protecting their pay and their jobs is not central to its plans. Now that's the union spin on it. So that would have been a story on the news that night. So now the public's aware of it. Now there's pressure on Qantas to look after their workers better. And it all came about because after Qantas got this money from the government, they decided to stand down 20,000 employees. So now there's pressure on Qantas to not do that. We'll also look at in class some videos of union campaigns. So we said to act as an official spokesperson to the media, that's their role. And part of that is to come up with ads on TV and social media that people can share to raise awareness of workers' rights. And we'll look at those in class.